of fear they might be living through. Now you wonder if they saw that fear in you. Walk on, walk on, don't look back, don't ask questions, don't you try to understand. Walk on, walk on, straight back down to your hotel room where she lies waiting for her man. Straight back down to your hotel room where she lies waiting for her man.
All right, it's Dan here, VE7VU and K7DVS in the United States. And I've been making some videos here for a while now, using some of my camera skills to try to share some of my knowledge about radio communications, which I learned from the best. And I'm just, you know, I think it's something useful, something helpful. Also, the primary purpose of the channel, the VE7VU channel, as indicated in the description, is to help others. So that's helping to fulfill that, and a lot of other random things have ended up on the channel too, and whatever else. And despite having me having PTSD and among other things, I do my best to try to relay a message or carry a message and get something out there that might be helpful to some folks, and maybe promote things. All too often these days, a lot of folks are dependent upon their cell phones and stuff like that, which we know are not very reliable, you know, also dependent upon some commercial infrastructure, commercial people, company, whereas this is, with the radio stuff, we're not depending on that. We're depending on ourselves, we the people. So I found it quite important, and I like to see what I can share and what I can help educate and pass along. The other day, I was in the town, and I ran into this fellow. He approached my truck, and he said, well, I've seen your videos, I've been watching your videos, and you know, I have a radio in my truck. Could you take a look at it for me? I don't know anything about it. And of course, right away I was like, oh, of course, you know, I was all excited to go check that out and see what it was. And it turned out it was a 40 channel CB radio, and you know, it has its limitations, and you know, I explained to him a little bit about it, what I could, helped him as I could. And so I found that to be one of the biggest hang-ups with some of the newcomers that come along trying to get involved in radio, because maybe they did not grow up with it, they don't have any experience, or they've been around cell phones and computers and stuff all their lives with the younger guys, so they just don't know a whole heck of a lot. And some of the most basic things, like just the identification of what kind of a radio is this, because not all radios are created equal. And so some of them won't talk to one, this one won't talk to this one, won't work with this one, won't work there, won't do this. And that's sort of one of the hang-ups that folks face. So it's a real basic level thing. And some of you, the old hands around here that already know all this stuff, you might say, oh, that's kind of boring. But you can also, maybe you want to listen in and listen along and see what, if your journey was similar. In fact, I know it won't be the same. You'll have a totally different journey, but maybe you can look for some of the similarities. And anyway, so that's what I wanted to do. It's just ensure that I'm going back to the basics and not just going off on some tangent about something. And you know, we got to look out for the most important guy, because remember, we have to remember the most important guy when we're in our radio community and helping others is the guy that's new. He's the most important. And so I just wanted to briefly go through just some basic radio identification. How do we identify some of these different radios? Okay, so some of the most basic radios you'll see, the most common radios you'll see, that's just what I'm going to go over. There's a marine radio, right? You'll see that in a boat. In a boat, usually really easily identifiable because it's often they're white. They're not always white, but it's, you know, waterproof and that sort of thing for the marine environment. And it's a channelized thing. It'll say on there channel 16 because that's the emergency frequency or the calling frequency for all the boats. And it's something that's supposed to be used just on the ocean or on a lake, not on land. So this radio should not ever be used on land. There are some exceptions, maybe at a marina or something like that where they want to contact boats coming in and stuff. They'll do that. But when you're out in the middle of the Midwest or something and you see these radios, you wonder why. And that's because folks do use them. You will find them in people's pickup trucks and stuff, and they might use them for hunting. And they're VHF 25 watts, so they can get some range and stuff. And they're nowhere near an ocean. They're probably not causing any problems, but you know, and it is something that you have to have a license for. You're supposed to have a license, but it's very common. You'll see it on boats. Yeah, and that marine radio, of course, they operate on VHF, on the VHF frequency spectrum. Next really common thing you're going to see is a CB radio, citizens band radio. And if you take a look at this one, it's got no power to it, but you know, they've got 40 channels AM, but they also have sideband. This particular one has sideband and you know, some squelch and adjustments like that. This is one you might mount in your pickup truck or something. And then there's, you know, there was handheld versions of these. Like this is a handheld version. This is another one, but it's got a long antenna that you can take out. And again, 40 channels. And these have been around since the 60s or somewhere around there. So, and they operate on 27 megahertz, which is actually in the HF spectrum, high frequency spectrum. So they need a longer antenna than something like that VHF marine radio I showed you. So right away, when you try to put something like this onto your vehicle, it's going to be compromised because you need to use a smaller antenna than the wavelength that it should be tuned for. And you're also limited to like 4 watts on AM and 12 watts. It's an unlicensed service. You don't need a license. But it's very, very common, especially in the United States. It used to be very common in Canada as well. However, they've set up sort of a system here where a lot of folks are getting onto to VHF. And a lot of the trucks and stuff are all running VHF. They get much better range and that sort of thing. These can be prone to interference as well, just because it's so low in frequency that it can be something called skip, where your signal bounces off of the ionosphere, which is some layers way up there in the sky, and bounce back down. So if you switch this on, if the conditions are right, you might be hearing somebody, you know, 3,000 miles away, or somebody in Oklahoma or Texas or whatever, when you're just trying to talk to your neighbor down the street. But very common, and it's 40 channels, channelized, so you can't really adjust your power. There's not many options, and you're stuck to those 40 channels. But that's CB radio, citizens band radio, probably the most common one you'll see. All right, and then we got like FRS radios, which stands for Family Radio Service. And it's sort of combined with something called GMRS, General Mobile Radio Service. And these operate in the UHF frequency range, ultra high frequency, which is like 400 megahertz. So they're quite high up, they're higher than VHF. The line of sight characteristics are quite pronounced. You don't have to be licensed for it unless you want to use the higher power in the GMRS. So in the United States, you can get a license and you can do GMRS and actually use repeaters on mountaintops and have quite successful range. The license is just a fee you pay. You get a family license. You don't have to do a test or anything. Very common. You'll see them everywhere. A lot of people have these. A lot of civilians have these in their households, and they'll use them for, you know, hunting, skiing, whatever. Often on the box, it will be advertised 20-mile range or something like this, which is very unrealistic. Maybe if it was like direct line of sight, point to point, it would be 20 miles. But in real world situations where you have trees and obstacles and buildings and stuff, you might be looking at a mile. Half a watt is what this one does. But those are FRS, 14 channels again. And actually a little more than that, 22 when it's GMRS. So yeah, but that's a very common thing you'll see as well. Can this talk to a CB radio? No, totally different frequency. It might say channel 1 on the front, but it can't talk to your CB that says channel 1 or your marine radio that says channel 21. All right, and then we can get into some commercial radios. Like this is an example of a Motorola commercial radio. This is another one, it's an older one, GM300. And these commercial radios are typically, again, they're channelized. They'll have an alpha tag on there and say, okay, dispatch 1, dispatch 2. They're not user programmable, but they have, usually certain agencies will have these. So let's say your local state patrol or your local sheriff's department, they'll have a whole bunch of these all programmed up. They'll have their own radio system with their own guys that maintain the towers and all the rest of it, and it's sort of their own private system. And that's commercial radio. There is higher power allotments, and it's kind of like a dummy version of ham radio. And I don't want to, I'm not trying to be mean, or I'm just joking when I say that, but it's like you basically select the channel, key the mic, talk, and away you go. And so it doesn't require a whole lot of know-how. Same with the marine radios, CB radios, FRS. You don't have to have a whole lot of technical know-how to select a channel and push the push to talk button. So commercial radios, and they're usually identifiable by brand names too, like Motorola, Kenwood, ICOM. But you'll know when it's a commercial radio and it's something that you can't program. Generally it has to go through a radio shop. You send it there and they're going to do the programming for you, because you probably don't have the software and that kind of thing to do. Okay, there's a commercial radio again, a Motorola. See, it's all fire department, so that's the agency that's in it. So again, it's just alpha tags. You can't adjust much, you're just limited to 25 watts and just whatever the radio tech programmed in there. And I wanted to get into, lastly, ham radio, or amateur radio as it may be known. This is an example of like a 2-meter radio, amateur radio. What does it say on the front here? This is a Yaesu analog transceiver. Sometimes it will say amateur transceiver or ham radio transceiver. And so radios like this you need to be licensed for. And you take a test in the United States to get your basic license or technician license. It's like 35 questions. You count it as 100 choice, multiple choice questions, and it's not that hard to do. And so this is something that we as a community work on together. There's no commercial interests here. We put up repeater sites and maintain them, and we have all kinds of options. And like a radio like this, instead of like those other radios that I showed you that just have 40 channels or whatever, you can go anywhere. You select what you want, you select your settings, your power level, because you've been trained to some degree where you can have some technical know-how, and you should know what you're doing as far as you know, where you're going and what you're doing. And this is really what I try to promote and turn guys towards. And it's unfortunate that a lot of the younger generation have kind of forgotten about it, but that's not necessarily true. There is lots of new guys up and coming, and there's so many different facets of it, no matter what you're interested in. If you're into that computer stuff or you're into that, it all connects in. We have all kinds of things. It's not just you know, talking on a microphone. We have other ways of sending data over the air. We do everything. Everything that you could do in the commercial world with a cell phone or a computer or internet, we can do it too, except with nobody in between and nobody knocking on the door for asking us to pay a bill, because we did it ourselves. So yeah, it's quite interesting. So that's just one example of one. And of course there's all kinds of examples. This one is like a VHF radio, but we also have HF radios, UHF radios. I'm going to show you an example of a radio that will do everything, like from 0 megahertz all the way to the top. And you could talk all around the world with, I could string up a piece of wire here, and just with a deep cycle battery, and I could talk to Japan, no problem, with a couple watts, and no infrastructure between us, no satellite, no internet, nothing. So yeah, amateur radio, ham radio, it's kind of the one that I like to talk about most. I've been a ham for a long time, and I'm licensed in both countries, and I actually don't know where I would be without it. To be honest, but you know, it's an altruistic movement, which means that selfless. Selfless is what that means. So we are selfless. We want to help one another, and it's we the people, the citizens, that put everything together and do all this. And a lot of the stuff you use today, the technology that you use today, was actually invented by a ham radio operator. So it can actually be a really cool hobby, but it's also a tremendous service. You can serve your community, and in times of disaster, whether it's a wildfire, an earthquake, that kind of thing, when those cell phone lines instantly go down, there's no internet, the guys that are going to be communicating are going to be the hams, and they know the way around it. They have the know-how. Even those commercial systems, your local sheriff's department, whatever, the lightning strikes it. It's going to go down, and then, but we know the way to circumvent that. We can go around it. It's kind of like, imagine the triangle, okay? And we got like the CEO on the top and the little guys on the bottom. Well, that's like inverted. So, the guys that know the most and been around the longest, they should be at the bottom. And the guys that are new, they should be at the top. And those are the guys that we should be educating and helping to carry the message and get going. So, you know, I've done some videos about in the past. I'm trying to keep this video basic if possible, just to give you a rundown. It's about radio identification. And I also want to touch on antenna identification, and I also want to touch on, up here in British Columbia, I've also been on this little bit of a tangent or a mission to help offer my services or be able to assist educating some folks about some of the radios used on the logging roads and forest service roads and stuff, because that's something where there was a lot of lacking education, and so I've been trying to help with that as well. But something like a CB radio, this is a common question I get. Will the CB radio work on a logging road here in British Columbia? No, probably not. There's some trucks that may be running a CB, but becoming few and far between. Generally, it's a VHF commercial radio that you need that's going to be programmed up. And there is a lot of these Baofeng radios, they call them, or they're from China. They're quite cheap. And a lot of guys have those. There's a lot of problems associated with those. And, you know, I would recommend against it, you know, unless you have the technical know-how. So really those radios that are coming out of China are sort of something that aimed towards ham radio operators who know what's going on, know what about the settings. They know if they're spuriously interfering with, you know, their local emergency services and stuff. So that's a really common question I get as well. But anyway, I'm just trying to keep it brief on that, on the whole topic. But that, I'm hoping, is going to give you a rough idea. How do we start identifying what kind of a radio is it? And what kind of a radio do I need? And with a little research, you can start finding out. Also on antenna identification, here's two examples of antennas that you might find on a vehicle. Okay, so they're just omnidirectional antennas, meaning that the RF's radiating everywhere, every which way around. There's different variations. You might see beam antennas that are directional or whatever, but this is just your common thing you might see on like a vehicle. But you know, if you see this on a vehicle, if I saw one like this size, I would know just by looking at it, the guy's probably running a UHF radio in that vehicle. And if I was in the United States, I'd take a good guess it would probably be GMRS. A radio like this, or an antenna like this length, I know that that's VHF. So he's got a VHF radio in that vehicle. And it goes on from that. But learning some basic antenna identification skills is also a really good starting point. Keep in mind that antennas are the most important part of any radio setup. Very most important. You get the best radio in the world, whatever, but if your antenna stinks and it's not properly matched to what you're doing, then your radio's not going to work. So think of it like a stereo. With you got a really powerful stereo at home, but you got really crappy speakers. It's still going to sound like crap. All right, and a radio like that there's another ham radio. It's a Yaesu. What does it say up there? HF, VHF, all mode transceiver. So that is a radio that will go do everything from bottom to top. They might call it a shack in the box or something like that. There's a ham radio amplifier, 2 kilowatt amplifier, because we can run not 1 watt, not 20 watts, but thousands of watts with our ham radio license. There's another example of a basic dual band 2 meter 440 ham radio, amateur radio. You can see it's programmable every way you want. Anything you want to do. Just another example. Yeah, and please do remember that we do have sort of a basic set of principles that we follow as amateur radio operators, and we can go into that another time. But I'll tell you the most important one, and this is the one that matters. The most important part of ham radio is helping others. And like I said earlier, if I take that radio and I turn it on and there's no one there, what's the point? You know, and if I'm the one helping that guy, I'm even more happy. But that's what it's all about, is helping others. And just try to remember that one. Thank you. All right, well, that's basically my little rant on that. I was just trying to be brief and explain some of the most common radios you'll see, and maybe some tips on how to identify them, and keeping in mind that they don't all talk to each other. They all use different antennas. You can't just take the CB antenna and use it on your VHF, etc. And you know, so and obviously the real point that I'm trying to drill home is that amateur radio, or ham radio as we call it, which is actually, it can be considered an art, a hobby, a service, an altruistic, selfless movement. We the people that take care of it and put it together. No corporation. Principles before personalities, where we put the principles first before we put money or your ego or whatever it is before it. We want just to be, we're putting before it helping others, right? Because I could take any radio and I could pick it up and listen, and there's nobody on the other end. If there's nobody on the other end, it's useless. And if my radio's not switched on, it's useless. It's as useless as a brick. And maybe another time I could talk about how all the different times that distress calls I've picked up and helped guys out. Of course, I was really grateful to be able to help them out, you know, when they needed help, and I heard their call just by leaving the radio on. So that's another important thing. But you know, so it's we the people, the citizens, and you know, some of you might not quite understand, you know, how much I love both of our countries and our land. I love it, absolutely. You may not fathom how much I love our land here. You know, I can't pick up a piece of dirt or rock and identify this is the United States or this is Canada. The country lives in only one place. It lives in the United States Constitution, and it also lives in the citizens. And that's who I want to talk to, is my fellow citizens. So I'm dead against any kind of encryption or getting into your own little encrypted group or clique where only we talk, only we can hear each other. We need to be together and all on one page. That's the spirit of it. The spirit of this whole thing, how it always has been. And I've noticed a lot of that going on lately, but more and more where, oh no, I only want to talk to my brother down the road, and I only want to talk to my family. Well, no, we want to have a link together with all of us. And yeah, it's amazing what will happen when people come together. And it's a lot more fun too, I'll tell you that much. So that's my ranting. So thank you very much for watching and listening. And 7-3.
Oh, the river knows your name, and your tears falling like the rain all around you, suffering in pain. Oh, the river knows your name, and the river hears you cry as the lightning cracks the open sky, as your mama sings a lullaby. Oh, the river, she knows why. surface with a rushing sound, like a freight train passing through a town. Let the river wash you down, and let the river take away all the words you and I could never say. In the silence, darling, let us scream. Let the river take it all away. Oh, the river knows your name, from the Brazos to the Wabash to the Seine. No two journeys are ever quite the same.